Most folks today, if they want to know whether it'll rain tomorrow, pull a glowing device from their pocket and stare at it. And my people, who carry no such device, can very often tell you what the weather's about to do just as well, sometimes better, simply by stepping outside and reading the signs. The sky, the wind, the air, the animals, the very feel of the day. Because long before there was any device to tell folks the weather, people read it themselves from the world all around them, and they read it remarkably well, for their very survival and their harvest depended on it. Today, I'm going to teach you those old signs, the ways to read the coming weather, with nothing but your own eyes and senses, the way farmers and sailors and country folk have done for thousands of years. So let me get right into it. But let me be honest with you right at the start, the way I always am, because this is important. These old signs are real, and many of them have true and sound reasons behind them, as I'll explain. But they are not perfect, and they are not magic, and they are not a substitute for the real warnings we have now about truly dangerous weather. So hear me clearly before we begin. For the everyday question of, will it rain this afternoon? Should I get the hay in? Will tomorrow be fair? These old signs serve wonderfully. But for the dangerous weather, the great storms, the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the truly deadly weather, you heed the real warnings, always, and you take them seriously. For those warnings save lives, and no old folk sign should ever be trusted over them. The old ways are for reading the ordinary weather of ordinary days. When true danger threatens, listen to the warnings. Keep that firmly in mind, and let's learn the signs. Let me start with the sky. For the sky is the great book of the weather, and the first thing to learn to read. And there's an old saying you may have heard, one of the truest weather signs there is. Red sky at night, shepherd's delight. Red sky in morning, shepherd's warning. Now that old rhyme holds real truth. A glowing red sky in the evening at sunset often means fair weather is coming, while a red sky in the morning can warn of coming rain or a storm. There's genuine reason behind it, having to do with the way the weather generally moves and how the light shines through the air, and folks have trusted that saying for a very long time because it so often proves right. So learn to watch your sunrises and sunsets. A fair red evening sky is a good sign for tomorrow. A red and angry morning sky tells you to be ready for weather. Now the clouds themselves tell a great deal, and learning to read them is one of the finest weather skills there is. High, thin, wispy clouds, the kind that look like fine streaks or feathers brushed high across the sky, often called mare's tails, are frequently a sign that a change in the weather is on its way, that rain may come in a day or so. When you see the sky begin to fill with a fine mackerel pattern of little clouds, like the scales of a fish spread across the heavens, that too often speaks of coming change and unsettled weather. And most telling of all, when the clouds begin to thicken and lower, when the sky grows heavy and gray, and the clouds sink down closer and closer, that is rain on its way. And soon. The clouds thickening and dropping down is one of the surest signs that wet weather is coming. And on a summer day, when you see the great white clouds piling up higher and higher into tall towers, building up like mountains into the sky, that is the making of a thunderstorm, and you'd best be ready for it before the afternoon is out. Watch the clouds, their shape, their height, their thickening, and they'll tell you much of what's coming. The wind is another great teller, for the direction the wind blows from and the way it shifts speaks of the weather it carries. Folks who lived close to the land learned which way the fair weather winds blew in their own place, and which way the winds that brought the rain and storms came from, and when the wind shifted round to the storm-bringing quarter, they knew weather was coming. A steady wind from the fair direction promised more fair days. A wind shifting round, especially to the direction that brought your bad weather, warned of a change. You learn the winds of your own particular place, for they differ from region to region. And once you know them, a simple feel of which way the wind is blowing tells you much. Now here is one of the most remarkable of all the old signs, and it's one you feel rather than see. The air itself, its very feel, changes before a storm. Before rain and stormy weather come, the pressure of the air drops, and though you may not know you're sensing it, your body often does. Many folks feel it in their bones and their joints, an old ache that flares up before a storm, and there's real truth in it. For the dropping pressure truly does affect the body. The air often goes still and heavy and close before a big storm, a strange calm and stillness, a waiting feel that anyone who's lived close to the weather learns to recognize. Sounds carry differently, seeming clearer and farther. So learn to feel the air, its heaviness, its stillness, that particular waiting quality before a storm. Your own body is a weather instrument, if you learn to listen to it. And then there's the ring around the moon, another old and reliable sign. When you look up on a night and see a great pale ring circling the moon, a halo around it, that often means rain or snow is coming, usually within a day or so. There's true reason behind it, for that ring is made by high, thin clouds, the very kind that often run ahead of a coming storm. So the ring around the moon is really those advanced clouds catching the moonlight and telling you what follows behind them. The same ring can form around the sun by day. So when you see that halo, ring around the moon, rain soon, as the old folks said. And they were right more often than not. The morning dew tells a smaller tale, but a useful one. When you wake to find a heavy dew on the grass in the morning, that often promises a fair day ahead. But a morning with no dew at all, when you'd expect it, can mean wet weather is coming. There's sound reason in it too, for a clear, calm night that lets the dew settle is the kind of night that comes with fair weather, while a cloudy or windy night that keeps the dew from forming often precedes rain. So a dewy morning is a good sign, and a strangely dry one a caution. Now, some of the most delightful old signs come from the animals, for the creatures often sense the coming weather before we do, and folks watch them closely. It's said that when cattle lie down in the field, rain is coming, and there may be something to it. Birds often fly lower before a storm when the pressure drops, so a sky full of low-flying birds can speak of coming rain, while birds flying high and free suggests fair weather. Bees and butterflies vanishing back to shelter when they'd normally be out and about can mean a storm is near. Ants have been said to build up their mounds before rain, and many a farmer swore that his animals grew restless and uneasy before a big storm, sensing what was coming long before he could. Now, some of this is truer than the rest, and I'll not tell you every animal sign is sound, but the creatures do sense the pressure and the coming weather in ways we've dulled ourselves to, and there's real wisdom in watching them. There are signs in smell and sound too. Many folks can smell the rain coming, that particular earthy smell in the air before a storm, and there's true reason for it, for the changing air really does carry different scents, and the earth gives off a smell as the humidity rises before rain. Smells often grow stronger just before wet weather, and smoke tells a tale, for on a fair day with high pressure, the smoke from a chimney rises straight up, but before a storm, when the pressure drops, the smoke tends to hang low and drift, so smoke that won't rise but hangs about is a sign of coming weather. And here are a couple more signs worth knowing, small ones but useful. Watch the leaves on the trees when a wind comes up before a storm. For many trees, when the wind blows against their natural lie, show the pale undersides of their leaves. And the old folks said when the trees show their backs, the leaves turning to show their silvery undersides in the rising wind, rain is on the way. There's a plant that tells the weather too, the pine cone, for a pine cone opens up in dry weather and closes tight when the air turns damp before rain. So a pine cone left on the windowsill becomes a little weather glass, opening and closing with the coming and going of the dampness. Even your own hair, or a bit of rope, or a door that sticks, tells the tale, for these swell and grow damp and stubborn when the humidity climbs before rain and go easy again in dry fair weather. The whole world, you see, is full of little instruments forever reading the air for you, the leaves, the cones, the ropes, the very doors of your house, if you only learn to notice them. That's the wonder of it. Once your eyes are open to it, the coming weather is written everywhere in 100 small signs all around you, and you needn't any device at all to read them. And I'll give you one last old sailor's saying, for it holds true wisdom about how a storm behaves. Rain before wind, and the storm will be long and hard, so take in your sails and make all fast, but wind before rain, and it will soon be fair again. Meaning the order in which they come tells you something of what kind of weather you're in for, whether a long, hard blow or a quick passing squall. Little bits of hard-won knowledge like that, tested over lifetimes at sea and on the land, are folded all through the old weather lore, each one a small key to reading what the sky is about to do. Now let me be the honest neighbor again and give you the plain truth about all these signs, because I've promised you honesty and I'll keep it. Not every one of these is equally reliable. Some, like the red sky, the lowering clouds, the ring around the moon, the dropping pressure, have solid, true reasons behind them and prove right very often. Others, some of the animal lore, are more hit and miss. Folk sayings that hold a grain of truth but shouldn't be leaned on too hard. And all of them are local and imperfect, telling you likelihoods, not certainties. The real skill, the thing the old weather-wise folk actually did, was not to trust any single sign alone, but to read many signs together, the sky and the wind and the air and the creatures all at once, and weigh them, and from the whole picture judge what was likely coming. One sign might fool you, but the red morning sky, and the thickening lowering clouds, and the wind shifting round, and the ache in the bones, and the low-hanging smoke all together, that's a strong and trustworthy warning of coming weather. It's the reading of the whole book of the sky and the world, not any single page, that made the old folks so good at it. And let me say that most important thing once more, plainly, because it truly matters. These signs are for the ordinary weather of ordinary days, and for that they serve beautifully. But when it comes to the truly dangerous weather, the deadly storms and tornadoes and hurricanes and the like, you do not rely on folk signs. You heed the real warnings that we're blessed to have now. Warnings that can see a great storm coming from far off and give folks time to get to safety. Those warnings save lives, and there is no wisdom and no virtue in ignoring them in favor of watching the birds. The old ways and the real warnings are not enemies. Use the old signs to read your everyday weather and to deepen your connection to the world around you, and heed the real warnings when true danger threatens. A wise soul uses both, each in its proper place. With all that said, honestly, let me tell you why I so love these old ways and want to pass them to you beyond just the knowing whether to carry an umbrella. Because there's something in it far deeper than weather. To read the sky and the wind and the world this way is to be truly connected to the world you live in, awake to it, paying attention to it, a part of it. Most folks now move through their days sealed away from the natural world, never looking at the sky, never feeling the wind, never noticing the signs the world is forever offering, getting all their knowing of the weather from a device without ever once looking up. And in that, they've lost something precious, a whole way of being awake and connected to the living world around them. When you learn to read the weather in the sky, you start looking up. You start noticing the clouds, the wind, the light, the creatures, the turning of the day and the season. You become present to the world in a way that most folks never are anymore. And that presence, that awakeness, that being truly part of the world you live in rather than sealed away from it, is a richness and a joy that the device in the pocket, for all its cleverness, can never give. Now let me go back and give you a fuller understanding of a few of these, because the more you grasp the why behind a sign, the better you'll trust and use it. Take the dropping pressure, for it's really the great secret behind so many of the signs at once, the thread that ties them together. Fair, settled weather comes with high pressure, the air pressing down heavy and steady, and stormy weather comes with low pressure, the air grown light and unsettled. And near every sign of coming rain is really a sign of that falling pressure felt in a different way. The ache in the old joints, the falling pressure. The smoke that hangs low instead of rising, the falling pressure letting it sink. The birds flying low, for the pressure change pushes them down. The sounds carrying farther, the smells growing stronger, all the falling pressure. So, when you understand that a coming storm is announced by that great drop in the pressure of the air, all these scattered signs suddenly make sense together, for they're all just different windows onto the same thing. And once you feel that in your bones, you begin to sense the weather changing the way the old folks did, not by memorizing a list of signs, but by feeling the very air change its weight around you. And take the clouds a little further, for reading them well is perhaps the single most useful weather skill of all, and it follows a kind of story if you know how to watch it. Often a spell of coming wet weather announces itself in stages that unfold across a day or two if you're watching. First come those high, thin, wispy clouds, the mare's tails high up, the very first outriders of a coming system. Then the sky begins to fill and whiten, and that mackerel pattern may spread across it, the clouds slowly thickening. Then they lower and gray over, sinking down and darkening, hour by hour, until the whole sky is heavy and low, and then comes the rain. So the sky is not just a single sign, but an unfolding tale, and a person who watches it through the day can often see the rain coming a good while off, reading each stage as it comes. That's the real art of it, watching the sky change over hours and days, and reading the story it tells. Let me also give you a sense of how the old, weather-wise folk actually lived with all this, for it wasn't a parlor trick to them, but a serious daily matter their livelihood rested on. A farmer had to know whether to cut his hay, for hay cut and then rained on is hay ruined, so he read the sky with real care before he ever swung the scythe. He had to judge when to plant and when to harvest, when a frost might come, when a storm might threaten the stock. A sailor read the sky and the sea with his very life in the balance, for a storm caught unready at sea was death. So these weren't idle sayings to the people who made them. They were hard-won knowledge, tested against real consequences over countless generations, kept and passed down because they worked, and because getting them wrong cost dearly. That's why I trust the soundest of them as I do. They weren't dreamed up. They were learned the hard way by people whose survival depended on getting the weather right, and only the signs that truly proved out got kept and handed down. There's a great deal of tested wisdom folded into these simple sayings. I remember my grandfather standing of an evening, looking long at the sky, feeling the wind, and saying with quiet certainty what the next day would bring, and how right he so often was. He carried no device and needed none. He had spent a lifetime reading the sky and the world, and it spoke to him plain. As a boy, I thought it a kind of magic. As a man, I understand it was something better than magic, a lifetime of patient attention, of looking up and noticing and learning, until the language of the sky was as familiar to him as his own tongue. That's a thing worth wanting, I think, that deep familiarity with the world you live in. And it's a thing anyone can begin to build, starting today, simply by looking up and paying attention. So I'd ask you to try it. Start looking up. Watch your sunrises and your sunsets for their color. Learn the clouds and watch them thicken or clear. Feel the wind and learn its directions in your own place. Notice the ring around the moon, the dew on the grass, the birds and the creatures, the smell of the coming rain. Don't throw away your real warnings for the dangerous storms. Keep those close. But for the everyday weather, start reading the world yourself and see how much it will tell you if you only learn to look. You'll be amazed how quickly you begin to sense the coming weather in your bones and how much more awake and alive and connected to the world you feel for the looking. And you'll have taken back an ancient skill that our ancestors relied upon for their very survival, and that connects you, through all the long generations, to every soul who ever looked up at the sky and read what was coming. If this is the kind of old wisdom you've been hungry for, the kind that connects you back to the world and to the good sense of those who came before, then stay here with me. There's so much more where this came from, and I aim to bring it back to you, one piece at a time. Subscribe, and we'll keep remembering the old ways together. Because some of the most wonderful things we ever knew are the simple ones we let ourselves forget. And the reading of the sky is surely one of them.